Podcast Answer Man, episode number 273.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you have been podcasting for many years, or you haven't quite yet recorded that first episode. There's something we can all do to take our show to the next level. That's right, my friends, and that is what this show is all about, helping you to take your show to the next level. And of course, I help you do that by sharing my own experiences over the years and things that I'm coming up with and facing on a day-by-day basis. And I have a wonderful show well prepared for you in advance today. We're going to have a couple different questions from our folks out there in the community. Trinity's asking, should she be putting her shows out in MP3 or MP4 format? Then Steve wants to know what's the cheapest gear he can get to get his podcast underway. He's got a budget of $200 or less. Kelsey has a very significant question, and it is, how can I bring in multiple guests into my show via different means and have them all hear each other? And oh, by the way, I want to have the ability for each of them to hear audio clips and all of that good stuff. And we're going to talk about that. Also, I've got to mention my next upcoming Podcasting A to Z course. Then I'm going to give you a little bit of my thoughts on a new segment that I'm bringing to Podcast Answer Man, which is going to be the Business Technology Update. So all of that and probably more will come up in this episode of Podcast Answer Man. Let's get things underway, however, by starting off with my personal plug of the week. And this week's personal plug of the week goes out to a very significant podcast, and that is the Social Media Marketing Podcast with Michael Stelzner. Now, Michael is with the folks behind the wonderful, very popular blog on social media called Social Media Examiner. And last week on August 10th, Michael released his very first episode. I will tell you up front, one of the reasons why I'm promoting it is because I'm very proud to say that I was involved in helping Michael get that thing launched. Helped him pick out the right equipment, how to hook it all up, and then of course worked with him one-on-one on all the details of getting him submitted to all of the different podcasting directories, and of course also coming up with the production workflow. So it's been a joy and an honor to get to work with him, not to mention the fact that I feel awesome about the idea that he has this massive online audience. We're talking tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands probably, of people who are already following his brand and are very loyal to taking heed to the kinds of things that he's sharing in his blog and on his site. But he is also now going to be bringing that to the podcasting world. And for those of us who prefer to listen to audio podcasts about social media trends and how we can apply them to better market our brands, rather, if we prefer to listen to that over reading a blog post about those kind of things, now we're going to have that option from Social Media Examiner, from Michael Stelzner, and it's going to be included in the Social Media Marketing Podcast. But also because this is exciting to me, because it is going to expose the world of podcasting to his existing community, those who are actively trying to market and promote their brands and are very much aware of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of Google Plus. They're aware of blogging. They're aware of YouTube and all of these other things, but they may not quite understand the value and the additional audience that's left out in the cold that you are not yet reaching with your brand if you don't have an audio podcast. And I know that Michael's going forward with promoting the world of podcasting to that audience. And that for me is personally Very exciting. And I think it should be exciting for all of us who are podcasters because it brings additional exposure to an audience that would have not heard about podcasting yet otherwise. So if you want to check it out, it's a weekly podcast. Episode number 1 was put out on August 10th. It immediately jumped to number 1 in the business marketing and management category. And I checked today, it's a week later now, and it's still hot. It's still holding in number 7. So it's in the top 10 of all business podcasts, not just the management and marketing category, but in all of business. It's still in the top 10 as I am recording the show here today. If you want to check it out, go over to socialmediaexaminer.com/podcast. Again, socialmediaexaminer.com/podcast. And do me a favor, if you enjoy the show, be sure to tell Michael that you heard about him from the Podcast Answer Man. All right, we are going to turn things over to our questions. The first question comes in from Trinity. Trinity, take it away.
Hi, Cliff. This is Trinity Wilds, and I'm calling from Fort Wayne, Indiana. We have a podcast called Fort Wayne Speaks, where we interview locals doing great things in the area. And one question I have for the Podcast Answer Man is whether we should be putting our interviews out there as an MP3 or an MP4. When we started this process, we had done a lot of reading on the internet and found a lot of suggestions that we should go with the MP4, but we're finding that some of the people that we're wanting to connect with are not able to listen to our interviews online. So we're wondering, I guess, if we should, so we have been doing the MP4, but we're wondering if we should switch over to MP3. So if you would, you could make a suggestion, we'd appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, Trinity, thank you so much for the question. And this is a very common mistake that a lot of brand new podcasters make, especially when creating an audio podcast. There are multiple different formats that you could put your show out there in. Some people tell you that you should always do the Ogg Vorbis format because it's open and all these other things. The fact is that the standard for audio podcasting, and it's one of the reasons why I love audio podcasting over video podcasting, is that there is a standard, and that standard is MP3. Now, MP3 is an encoder that is a licensed software. It's not an open source project by any stretch of the imagination, and for you to be able to encode in an MP3 file to encode to an MP3 file, you have to use programs that have been licensed to be able to do that. And of course, there are a couple different encoders out there. There's a project called the Lame Encoder. I'm not a fan of that software at all. And of course, the one that I think is the best is the Fraunhofer MP3 encoder. And Fraunhofer is the same encoder that is found in GarageBand, in iTunes, and it is also the same one that's involved in, or that is licensed and being used with Adobe Audition. So the Fraunhofer MP3 encoder. But anyway, to answer your question, by far, hands down, my number one recommendation for any audio podcaster is every file that you put out in audio form, my recommendation is MP3, not any other file format at all. And this would include my recommendation against the idea of using this thing called an enhanced audio podcast. And enhanced audio podcasts are basically, it's an Apple format that allows you to include images as in certain, and actually to break up your file into chapters. And so what this would allow you to do is I could actually be, in this segment right here, I could actually have on your display on your iPod or your iPhone or your iPad, it would display an image right now that says MP3 or M4A or MP4 or whatever, what file format. I could actually have an image that basically had maybe the logo of MP3 or something like that. Then when I go to the next question from Steve in just a moment, when I'm talking about what gear can I get, I could do an image of a dollar signs, in a piggy bank or something like that. So you could actually break up your audio recording into chapters, give each chapter its own artwork, and not to mention the fact that there's a way, I believe, that you can make that clickable links so that folks who are watching that on their iPad or their iPhone, they could click on the image or the link in the image and then be taken to a certain website. Those are called enhanced podcasts. And the reason why I do not like them is because they're not able to be viewed or listened to on many of the portable MP3 players that are not Apple related. Now, some players can handle the enhanced podcasts, but here's the situation. You are limiting yourself when you create an enhanced podcast. And most enhanced podcast producers will also produce a non-enhanced MP3 only feed that is the same content but without the artwork and the chaptering. And my main issue with that is feed confusion. When people will go in and search for your podcast in iTunes, they see, standard MP3 or enhanced podcast. And so what are they going to do? If somebody doesn't know the difference between the two, they actually may say, you know what? Well, obviously I want the enhanced one. And then all of a sudden they go and they download it and they try to play it. It doesn't work. You just have the potential of getting somebody who's frustrated. It didn't work. I can't figure all this stuff out. That podcasting stuff's too confusing. And then they never do subscribe to your show. I don't know if that's really something to be overly concerned about, but it's certainly something you would not have to be concerned about at all as long as you always produce your show as an MP3 audio file. I don't know hardly any players out there today that can't play an MP3 file. And so, there's my recommendation to you, Trinity, and to everyone else out there. By the way, if you are out there and you're producing your show and you're making it available as a WMA, a Windows Media Audio, if you're doing M4A, if you're doing WAV files, all of that other stuff, my recommendation for you is to take all of those files, convert them over to MP3, and re-release the content because MP3 is the way you want to go. All right, next up is a question from Steve, and Steve has a question on how to get the right gear on a tight budget.
Hello, Cliff. This is Steve Borgman. I'm calling from Prosper with Asperger's. That's myaspergers.net. And I have a question regarding what is the lowest budget items I can start off with in a podcast. I've seen some podcasts that say you only need like a $10 plug-in microphone. And then I've seen your opinion that I need to go with, I forgot the name of the handheld recorder, but I think it's priced at $199. And right now my budget is such that I need $199 and below. So I just wanted to hear your feedback as to what would be the bare bones minimum of the equipment I would need. I have looked at your equipment page, but I still feel like I'm not certain what I could use from $199 and under to get started on my very first episode. Thank you very much. I'll look forward to hearing from you.
All right, Steve, you actually asked two different questions in your call there. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But one, you said, I want to get something that is, I have a budget that's $199 or below. But then you also asked, what are the bare bones minimum? And the bare bones minimum is actually free. I do want to share with you, there are so many options that I can't list them all. I could probably do 20 Podcast Answer Man episodes, an hour each, and not run out of different options for you to go with for $199 or less in investment in your podcasts. There's just so many different options. I don't spend a lot of time talking about those options here on Podcast Answer Man because I generally suggest that we start a podcast that sounds amazing and I want shows. I want to help people take their shows to the next level. But I never want anybody to think that if you go to my equipment page that you have to spend tons of money. In fact, I need to do something really quick. I want to just go to podcastanswerman.com/equipment because I want to make sure that I still have this phrase at the very beginning of my page. Yes, it says, "Welcome to my equipment page. I think it is important to let you know that you could start podcasting with free software," which, by the way, is a link to some free software. And it says, "and as little as $35 spent on an inexpensive USB headset." And if you click that link, this is at podcastanswerman.com/equipment, by the way. If you click that link, it should take you to my affiliate connection with B&H Photo and Professional Audio, and it will take you to just a Logitech USB headset. And so go check that out sometime, and you'll see that that's there. It says, "This is actually how I started back in 2005. Full details can be found in my free Learn How to Podcast tutorial. However, if you want to have a professional sound that puts the audio of your podcast among the top 3% of podcasts out there, then you should consider investing in professional audio equipment." So again, even my website, if you go there today, you'll see that I do mention you could start as low as $35. Now, I want to give you 6 options here, Steve, that is going to help you out. First, I want to let everyone know you can start with no equipment. And that is, as long as you have access to a telephone. It doesn't matter if it's a 1950s rotary dial phone. Actually, wait a second. It does matter. It needs to at least have touch tones. Because if you called into a service called TalkShoe, TalkShoe.com, or you can go to freeconferencecall.com, or there's a ton of other services out there that will allow you to dial in. TalkShoe is the one that I would recommend if you wanted to go this free, super cheap route. But if you wanted to, you could call in with a telephone to TalkShoe.com, and TalkShoe.com will allow you to, number one, it can be broadcast live. People can come and participate live. They have a little chat room going on during the whole thing. Other people could dial in by phone, and it will take care of recording the entire telephone conversation for you. Now, it could be just yourself. I know people who would actually fire up TalkShoe, dial in by telephone, and they would hit the record button. They would never promote it. You can even make it unlisted so nobody sees it, and you could just record yourself talking through your telephone into their conference calling system, and it will record it and make it available for download as an MP3 file. In fact, they'll even host it on their site, and they'll even give you an RSS feed. And if you wanted them to, and I recommend that you don't do this, but if you wanted them to, they can actually take their RSS feed and submit it to iTunes for you. I would recommend that you do not do that, and that you must go through learnhowtopodcast.com to find out how to set up that RSS feed from TalkShoe through FeedBurner so that you can change that down the road. Again, learnhowtopodcast.com is absolutely free. It is a tutorial that if you're just getting started out, I believe you must go through that. All right. So that's with a telephone. And again, any telephone, as long as you do need the touch tones to actually be able to dial in your ID and your pound sign and all that stuff. But there you go. That's option number 1, any telephone. Real quickly, you're gonna be a recorded telephone call. I mean, that's going to be the audio quality that you have. And so matter of fact, it'll sound just like Trinity here. It'll have this audio quality.
Hi, Cliff. This is Trinity Wilds, and I'm calling from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Which, I mean, it's not terrible. Matter of fact, there are a lot of podcasts out there, and in fact, I think way too many, unfortunately, podcasts out there that are recorded telephone calls. And I personally, I'm an audio snob. I don't like those. I think they give podcasting a bad name. But if you wanted to get back to the question, what's the bare bones minimum? Technically speaking, anything that records your voice. I mean, if you found a way to actually speak into a big cylinder and it actually puts grooves on an analog record, and then you found a way to convert that over via analog patch cables to Audacity on your computer, As long as it's audio and you put it out there, I mean, technically speaking, you can do a lot of ways to get your audio recorded. Option number 2. Certainly do not even like suggesting that this is an option, but it is, and it's called the built-in microphone. Oh my goodness, I said it. Yes, many computers today, a ton of laptops, have built-in microphones that come with them. And built-in microphones are not usually the greatest option. I'm going to give you an example of an audio audio testimonial that came in recently. Let me see if I can play this without giving away who this is. Hold on one second. You know what? I just realized I can't play that. Let's just put it this way. Sometimes computers have really bad noise. That's all I'll say. Computers can have some terrible fans. They can have some terrible buzzing and hissing and popping and all kinds of other things. But it could be possible that you have a really clean sounding machine. Not likely, but it could be. And your built-in microphone is not going to sound great, but it's going to be possible. It is possible to create a podcast with a built-in microphone. Now, again, there is a third option. Now, this one actually is not a terrible option at all. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo this one for you right here, right now. What I'm doing is I'm pulling up my iPhone. So if you happen to have an iPhone or an Android phone or any kind of smartphone that has a really decent microphone on it, many of them do, you can get either free software or some kind of audio recording app. And here's one. It's called iTalk. This is by Griffin, and I believe they have a free version. I basically paid, I think it was $1.99 or $2.99 or $4.99. I can't remember. So for less than $5, you can get this. It's iTalk, and I'm going to hit record, and I'm now going to switch it over to best, and then I'm going to go, hey everybody, this is Cliff Ravenscraft, and I am doing a test. Right now I am speaking directly into my Heil PR40 microphone, and at the same time I'm holding up my iPhone right in front of me as well, so that you can hear the audio difference between recording directly into your cell phone that you already may have and the Heil PR40. All right, so I just went ahead and did that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause for just a moment while I transfer this file over to my computer. Alrighty, and with the iTalk application, I was able to just send that right over. I could have sent it to myself via email. There are many other ways I could get it to my computer. I use the Dropbox functionality. Anyway, you just heard what I just recorded via my Heil PR40 microphone, but I want to go ahead and hit play now and let you hear exactly what I just recorded from my nothing more than my iPhone. Hey everybody, this is Cliff Ravenscraft, and I am doing a test. Right now I am speaking directly into my Heil PR40 microphone, and at the same time I'm holding up my iPhone right in front of me as well, so that you can hear the audio difference between recording directly into your cell phone that you already may have and the Heil PR40. Well, there you go. And so, again, that's under $5 if you happen to have a smartphone already. If you don't, then certainly there are other options. So we've given you 3 options now. Option number 4 is a USB headset. A USB headset. And I'm going to do something for you that I don't like to do very often. That's not true. It's not a big deal to me. I am going to go to my archives, and I'm going to play for you the very first ever, and I'm not kidding, the first ever podcast I ever recorded. It was in December of 2005, and I was using nothing more than a little headset with, headphones with a little boom, tiny microphone off to the side. It was a Logitech model, I believe. At the time, though, it was not a USB one. USB was just getting, USB headsets, with the boom mics were just coming out at the time, and I actually used one. It was it had 2 plugs at the bottom of it. One had a stereo 1/8 inch jack that plugs into the headphone jack, and it had a 1/8 inch jack that plugged into the microphone jack. So I didn't even have USB headset at the time, but it was still it's equivalent to the USB headsets like the Logitech headsets that you can get today for about $35 anywhere between 25 to 45 bucks. They're all about the same. Let me go ahead and hit play, and you'll hear the very first ever podcast I ever recorded. This is Generally Speaking, a podcast production of Cliff Ravenscraft and Friends. Oh gosh, I sounded horrible. And that music, where did I get that?
Hello and welcome to the show. This is my very first podcast for Generally Speaking. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft. I'm in Hebron, Kentucky, and I just want to go over with you a couple things to get this thing started. First off, I want to talk to you about the format of the show. I could not decide whether or not I wanted to do another Lost podcast that is 100% all Lost related items, just like various other shows that I'll mention in just a moment, or if I wanted to do a technology related podcast like.
There you go. So anyway, that's what my very first ever podcast episode sounded like. And I was using just a standard little headset. And you could start with, like I said, somewhere between 20, 25 bucks, all the way up to about 45 bucks. And that's going to be fine. Honestly, those are all going to be, relevant all options for somebody who wants bare bones. Now, going to what you said there before, Steve, you said that you have about $199 or less to spend. So it sounds to me like you're at least willing to spend about $200 or so on some equipment. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to give you two options at the $199 level. And these are two options that I would recommend, and I would do it proudly. And I'll explain to you what those options are and why I would recommend them. The first one is a Shure SM58 microphone. It is a dynamic microphone, and it is a very decent sounding microphone. It's not quite as good as the Heil PR40. There's a reason why there's a price difference of $200 or so between the two mics, but for the price range of about a $99 microphone or $109 depending on where you get it, the Shure SM58 is an amazing microphone. And it's an XLR professional grade microphone. And so this is something that if you add more equipment down the road, you will be able to continually use this gear with your new equipment, such as a mixer or what have you. Now, the one thing is how am I going to get that audio into my computer, right? Well, you could go and get yourself a cheap mixer for about 65 bucks, something like a Behringer 802 mixer, and then an XLR cable, and then of course a CMR 210 cable, which is it's a specific cable that it's basically two RCA male plugs to 1/4 or 1/8 inch TRS or stereo plug that would plug into the line in of your computer system. Now that would actually be cheaper than what I'm about ready to suggest to you, but it's certainly not as easy. And if you want just easy, quick, ready to go, super portable, then I recommend what is called the X2U XLR to USB adapter, made also by Shure. And in fact, for $199, you can get the combo. So for $199 in the package, you get a Shure SM58 microphone and this XLR to USB adapter. And it will basically, you plug it in, this adapter into the XLR port on the microphone, and it comes with probably a little USB cable to go from the little adapter into your USB port. And that's all you need. It's $199. I do have an affiliate link for this. If you go to, by the way, gspn.tv, it stands for Generally Speaking Production Network. But if you go to gspn.tv/X2U combo. Again, that's gspn.tv, X is in X-ray, the number 2, U is in USB, combo, gspn.tv/X2U combo. You'll see that combo for $199. You can get that. And then, of course, you could use free Audacity software to record your audio. Option number 6 is, and you've already mentioned it, you've heard me talk about it, the Roland R-05 recorder. It is $199. usually right around that price, at least as of today, Thursday, August 16th, 2012. And you can get that at gspn.tv/R05. Again, gspn.tv/R05. In fact, if you go to those will take you to B&H Photo. There are a lot of other digital audio recorders out there. I encourage you to stay away from the voice recorders and stick with professional grade digital audio recorders. But anyway, those are all the options. Well, no, I already said it at the beginning. Those are just 6 options that are available to you with a budget of about $200 or less. And there are countless numbers of other options available as well. But anyway, I hope that helps you out in some way, Steve. And I look forward to you calling back and saying that you've released your first episode online sometime soon. That would be awesome to hear. All right, next one is another question about audio equipment, and it comes in from Kelsey. Or is it about audio equipment? We'll see.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kelsey, and I'm calling from Seattle. And I am calling in regards to the podcast, Answer Man podcast. My question is, I've been doing a lot of searching online. There's a plethora of information out there, but I can't seem to find the exact info I need. My friend and I used to do improv together. We want to make a variety show podcast. It'd be about 45 minutes long. We want to do it once a week and have a couple seasons. So we would do about 12 episodes, take a couple months off, do another 12 episodes. I figured out how to do Skype, how to record Skype calls and whatnot, but what I'm trying to figure out is how to do a third call in a podcast so that my friend Nick can hear the same person. I also want to be able to play sound effects and whatnot and music and background music in the background so that he can also hear it and so that I don't have to mix it in post. How do I produce a podcast? What kind of equipment do I need? Is there any way to achieve this just through a program? I'm using a PC, not a Mac. I know a lot of people use Macs. So that's my question, and I thank you for your time. Bye.
All right, Kelsey, thank you for the question. And by the way, real quickly, I want to say that this was originally sent to me as an email. One of those, it's the average quick question that I get in my email inbox. And it's from somebody who's not looking to hire me to consult with them one-on-one, but was hoping that I could just give them some answers. And I said, I'll tell you what, Steve, why don't you call this in on my voicemail feedback hotline, and I'll try to answer this in an upcoming episode of Podcast Answer Man, because I want to be able to get this out there for everybody. And this is not a quick question. This is, matter of fact, I'm going to try to explain this within the next 20 minutes or less, if that's possible. But here's the deal. First of all, I want to tell you that what I'm looking at is a hand-drawn diagram, actually 2 diagrams, that I spent probably about 40 minutes drawing out and kind of diagramming some things in a notebook. I scanned this image and made it a PDF document for you. So if you want to, you can follow along in audio. I'll try to explain this in a way that makes sense in audio. I'm going to go way over a lot of people's heads, although many of you are going to be like, yeah, I'm following along, no problem. If you want to, and you have the ability to, you can go to gspn.tv/273 diagram. That stands for episode 273 of this podcast. So it's basically gspn.tv/273 diagram. That will give you the ability to download this PDF document of exactly what I'm looking at. All right, so let's do a recap here. First of all, Kelsey wants to do a variety show with Nick, a friend that he used to do improv with. It's going to be a weekly show, about 45 minutes an episode. He's already figured out how to do Skype, so Skype is not a problem for you. It sounds to me, just assuming from your question, I'm assuming that you figured out how to record Skype audio on your computer. So I want to encourage you to stretch your imagination or stretch your education on recording Skype calls to actually recording them in hardware and using something called a Mixer Mix Minus, especially with all the other things that you want to do. Now, if I'm understanding, Kelsey, your question here, you said, how can I do a third call, have a third caller in a podcast so that my co-host Nick can can also hear the third caller, and the third caller, I assume, could hear Nick. And also, you mentioned that you want to be able to play sound clips during these calls, and I assume so that both callers can hear the sound clips that are being played, and that all of this is getting recorded. Now, you said that you're using a PC and not a Mac, and I just want to set this straight. I'm a total Mac snob, but honestly, it doesn't, as a podcaster, it doesn't matter, especially as an audio podcaster, it doesn't matter if you're using PC or Mac. Either one will work perfectly. So that's not even an issue. Now, one of the questions, let's see here. One of the questions that you asked is, I'm looking down here, possible solutions, because I had taken some time to actually diagram out what my answers are going to be to, and I just need to make sure that I don't. Oh, yeah. One of the questions you asked, is there a way to do all of this just using software? Recording it into your computer, basically playing, having your computer record while it's also simultaneously playing audio clips while it's connected to Skype, and also is bringing in a third, caller, a third person or a second caller or a guest into your show. Is it possible for one software package to do all of those things? The answer to your question is yes. Yeah, there have been many different software packages out there who have tried to do virtually inside the computer what a physical mixer will do for you. Now, I am not going to spend any time telling you how to find that software or anything like that. I strongly advise against it. If you are adamant that you must record all of this stuff that you're talking about into software, continue to search. You'll find some things out there, just names off the top. I mean, Virtual Cables, Audio Hijack Pro, the software. I mean, here's the deal. I think you're going to be looking for some big issues coming your way. Ground floor noise, static, hissing, all of this other stuff. Audio levels are going to be atrocious between all the different sources of audio. And not to mention the fact that your software is going to crash. And even if you were a Mac user, I would tell you your software is going to crash. Eventually, you'll lose it all. All right. During one of those great episodes, the best episode you ever recorded probably would be the one that you'll lose. All right. So is there a way to do it all in software? The answer is yes. I highly recommend against it. All right, so you asked, what hardware would I need to pull this off? And so I'm going to tell you that, again, just like, the last question, there are so many options out there. This is why, and you had even, Kelsey, you had mentioned that you looked all over the internet and couldn't find specifically what you're looking for. And that's because specifically what you're looking for is unique to you. And if I knew more about you, I would actually advise either other different options. But here's what I'm going to do, not knowing what your budget is, not knowing a bunch of other scenarios, just going only by what you've given me. I'm going to give you my recommendation of what you would need to pull this off. First off, you would need a mixer, all right? Specifically, you need a mixer with a minimum of one auxiliary output, preferably two, all right? You'll need a mixer with at least one auxiliary output, preferably two. Now, let me explain to everyone what an auxiliary output on a mixer does. So, a mixer is, and this isn't so complicated. A mixer is, okay, let's just put it this way. You have a digital audio recorder, and you have a microphone. And then all of a sudden, you take that microphone and you plug it into the digital audio recorder. And then you hit record, and what you speak into the microphone now goes into the digital audio recorder, right? Well, what if you want two microphones? Well, some digital audio recorders will allow for two microphones to be plugged in. I personally like the Roland R05 recorder. It has one audio input for line in. And so how do we get two microphones into that same thing? We could use a little splitter cable, but let's just talk about the mixer. So what happens is a mixer is nothing more that takes more than one audio signal and mixes it together so that it goes down to one signal to your recorder. So I could actually have two microphones, plug in both microphones into the mixer. Those are the audio sources. And the mixer takes those two audio sources and puts it out one main output to the digital audio recorder in my example. So also, what if I wanted to actually be able to bring in audio clips, something like this.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte of This Week in Tech, and you're listening, you're smart, to Cliff Ravenscraft. He is the podcast answer man.
So how am I doing that? I'm speaking into one microphone that is plugged into a mixer. I have an audio cable coming from the speaker output of my computer into my mixer. And the mixer is taking those two things and mixing them together into one main output to my digital audio recorder. So a mixer is, you pull it out of a box, you see lots of knobs and buttons and all these different things. And gosh, some of the bigger ones, I don't even understand how they're routing the stuff around. But the most mixers, usually the 12 channels or less, they're 14 channels or less. Those are pretty easy to understand once you understand the basics of what a mixer is doing. So you have a mixer, it's got multiple audio sources input, and it has one main output. Now, most mixers do have at least one auxiliary output. Not all of them, but most of them do. And an auxiliary output says, you know what, we're going to give you the ability to send another audio output to another device. And it's going to be able to be different than what you're sending to the recorder. So therefore, it would be possible for me to, and by the way, that auxiliary output has its own row of knobs, its own row of volume controls for each channel. So in essence, what I could do if I wanted to, let's just say I wanted to send I'm doing a live stream out to the internet. And I've got this phone device over here. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so I have the phone device, and I can take in live calls, which I can here in my studio. I can take in live calls, and let's just say I'm working for a radio station. The radio station says, I don't mind that you broadcast your show live on the internet via Ustream, but the only thing is we do not want you to broadcast the telephone callers, the voice of the people calling in, because we don't, we just don't want that to happen for whatever reason. And I know Leo Laporte used to have this issue with the radio stations and the networks that he was with. So anyway, what would happen was I could actually send my main output of my mixer to my digital audio recorder. It gets the audio caller, it gets my voice, it gets my audio clips, it gets all of that stuff. And then what I can do is I can send another audio output from the auxiliary into my live streaming computer that then sends out to Ustream. And what I'll do is on the channel for my microphone, I turn that auxiliary knob up because I want the people who are hooked up on Ustream to hear from the auxiliary output. I turn that volume control up for the channel on my microphone so they can hear my voice. But then I have this device over here where people can dial in and call. And that's coming in on, let's just say, on line 3 on my mixer, because it is on line 3 of my mixer. And what I can do is I can turn the auxiliary knob down so that the people on Ustream, it's not that channel coming into my mixer is not going out the auxiliary output because I have it turned down on that channel. So now I'm hearing in my headphones the voice of the caller. I'm hearing my own voice. The digital audio recorder is getting the main output, which is everything coming into the mixer. But on the auxiliary, I've cut out the audio from the caller because I'm not allowed to broadcast that. I've decided to turn that channel down, and that auxiliary gives me something else. Now, let's just say for something crazy, I wanted somebody else via Skype. Let's just say I wanted to actually only be able to record. I wanted to have a separate recording of just the voice of the people who call in by telephone. There's no reason I would ever want this, but let's just say I do. If I had a second auxiliary output, then what I could do is I could actually have another digital audio recorder or a computer recorder or anything else. And from auxiliary output 2 from my mixer to that recorder, I would then go to the and by the way, if it has auxiliary output 2 or 2 auxiliary outputs, the second output is going to have its own row of volume knobs. So if on that second recorder, I only want to record the voice of the people on the telephone, but I do not want it to get the audio clips from my computer, and I do not want it to get my voice. So I would go to the channel number 1 where my microphone is plugged in, and on auxiliary knob 2, I would turn it down. And that would keep my audio, my voice, from going out auxiliary 2 to the second recorder. Now, on line 3, where the telephone is coming in, I would turn auxiliary number 2, knob 2, up so that voice or that audio from the telephone does go out to the second recorder. Now, let's just say on audio channel number 5, I have my audio clips, those little things coming through. I don't want that to go to the recorder. That's coming on channel 5. Let's go ahead and auxiliary knob 2, let's turn that all the way down. So now my recorder gets my voice, it gets the caller here, and it also gets that. But because and so what's going on is now the people, if I, and by the way, I didn't say this before, but on auxiliary number 1 for channel 5, the audio clips, I have that auxiliary number 1 turned up as well because I want the people on my live stream to hear my audio clips. So because I have this mixer, I now have the thing that takes all of these audio sources and has a main output that's going to my digital audio recorder or any recording device. I then also have auxiliary 1 that's actually going out to my live streaming audience that is getting everything, but because I'm using a separate auxiliary 1 output, they're getting everything but the telephone callers. And I have a secondary recorder coming off of auxiliary output number 2, and that recorder is just getting only the audio from the telephone device. All right, so I hope that all of that made sense. That's what these auxiliary outputs do. So the first thing, like I said, you would want... Oh, sorry about that. I'm trying to get back to my notes here. So you would want a mixer with a minimum of 1 auxiliary output, but I would prefer having 2 auxiliary outputs. Another thing that you would want is a microphone. My recommendation, I don't know your budget, I prefer the Heil PR40 microphone, but you could get something like a Shure SM58. There are less expensive microphones out there, lots of different options, but still, those are my 2 recommendations. And then, yes, you could, instead of taking the main output of the mixer and going into a digital audio recorder, you could go into a computer. I don't recommend it. There are many reasons why I don't like it. Many people disagree with me. I don't care. I do what works for me, and I've done more than 3,000 podcast episodes, and it works well. So anyway, I recommend a digital audio recorder, and preferably right now my recommendation is the Roland R05. You can find that at gspn.tv/RO5. And here's another thing that you'll need to do. Based upon what you have told me, you will need 2 sound cards for your computer. Most computers only come with 1 sound card built in. It usually has an output jack, a 1/8 inch output jack that you can plug headphones in or speakers into, and it usually has a line in or microphone, and sometimes they have both jack, and either one will work. But anyway, you would have line in and speaker jack. Now, sometimes you have a Mac computer that only has the headphones jack, and in either case, you will almost always need a second sound card, which, by the way, I recommend the Griffin iMic, and you can get that, by the way, at gspn.tv. Let me just look here. gspn.tv/iMic, IMIC. That's gspn.tv/IMIC, iMic. And this is, I think, they're not that expensive, and it works both on Mac and PC, so it doesn't matter which one you're using. And it just basically, via USB, gives you an additional audio sound card. All right. Now, here's the reason why we need a second sound card is because we want to be able to bring in both audio clips from the computer, and we also want to be able to bring Skype's audio or the guest from from Skype into our recorder as well. All right, so here is what I'm going to do. Now, this is where if you have the PDF document, you can kind of follow along. But in option number 1, we have one computer with the built-in audio sound card. I'm assuming that it has both line in and a speaker output, and an external USB, which is the Griffin iMic. Now, the Griffin iMic we're going to use to send out audio clips. So I use a program called SoundBite by Black Cat Systems. Anyway, you can find that. Well, I'll tell you what. If you don't find it easily, then email me and I'll let you know. Cliff@podcastanswerman.com. Anyway, so Black Cat Systems. I go into my SoundBite preferences, and I'm sure that they have this on the PC side as well. And then you go sound output device, and then change that over to your Griffin iMic. All right, so and then bring that into, it doesn't matter what channel it is as long as it's a channel. Let's just assume that that's going into, on my mixer, it's coming, my audio clips come into channel 11/12. All right, so that's what I'm going to tell you here. So I'm going to bring it in 11/12. And then I want to bring Skype up, and I want to make sure that Skype is using the internal sound card. All right, so I wanted to use the built-in line in for my microphone, and I wanted to use the built-in speaker jack or a speaker output for the audio from the caller on Skype. And I want to bring that in on my mixer, and I bring it, for me, it's coming in line 1314. All right, so that I have all of this audio coming in. I have Skype. By the way, both of those cables are coming from the same computer. One, Skype is sending its audio out one of the cables, and that's through the built-in output of the sound card. And the USB iMic, that is actually the software that you're using for your sound clips, is sending the audio out to another cable out of your computer. Those are coming into your mixer. Now, here's the situation. Let's just assume that you only have one auxiliary output. Now, I've labeled mine that we're using auxiliary 2. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2. But in this diagram, what you need is a cable that goes from the auxiliary output of your mixer into the line in of your built-in card on your computer. And by the way, the cable I think I generally use, it's called a CMP10 or CMP159. Let me just check. So if I go to gspn.tv/CMP159, let me make sure that it is a 1/4 inch T. No, that is not right. Let's do CMP105. gspn.tv/CMP105. I think I'm almost positive that's it then. Yes. So that has a 1/4 inch mono or TS on one side, and it has a 1/8 inch TRS or stereo on the other side. And so what that's going to do is you're going to plug the 1/4 inch of the CMP105 cable into the auxiliary output, and the 1/8 inch goes into the line in input. All right. You've got your digital audio recorder, and your digital audio recorder, you're going to use gspn.tv/CMP210. And let me just make sure that's right. gspn.tv/CMP. CMP210. No, CMR210. Glad I'm checking these. So it's a gspn.tv/CMR210. And that cable is going to go from the tape out of your mixer into your line in of your digital recorder. And then you'll see your aux knobs. Now, here's the thing. The auxiliary knob for your, if your whatever output that you're sending to Skype, that one for the audio clips coming in from the USB sound card, the iMic, that needs to be turned up. That auxiliary channel needs to be turned up so that the audio will go out auxiliary output to the computer. Now, the channel that you've got your Skype audio coming in on, that audio needs to be turned down. All right, so that audio does not go out that output. You don't want the people on Skype to hear their own voice back. So this now is going to allow you to use the same computer to send audio out of the computer via the external USB and then back into the computer using the auxiliary out, because we have that iMic sound clip auxiliary knob turned up. But we're going to keep the people from Skype hearing themselves back in an echo by turning that auxiliary channel down. This is all laid out in this diagram, and I know this is way complicated and stuff like this. And this, my friends, is why this is not a quick answer. Typically, I do all of this with GoToMeeting, and I show you with diagrams, and I'm walking you through. I'm confirming that you're understanding everything. And so yeah, there's a lot involved. So you want, now that's one caller on Skype, that's audio clips, and that's going into the recorder. No problem at all. So now you want to bring in a second caller. Now here's where you can do this. Number one, you can bring in a separate caller by just using the Skype conference calling functionality. Probably that's what I'm going to recommend that you do. Now, if that second guest is coming in via Skype, you could have an issue where one person's louder than the other. To be honest with you, this is getting way more long. This is way longer than I even wanted this to be. And it literally does. This is all unique to individual use cases. So, but basically, Kelsey, what I'm saying is, number one, you could use the Skype conference calling feature. Another option that you could use is you could use a second computer with Skype on it. So you could actually have Skype running on a laptop and everything else happening on the desktop, and then you could have a separate Skype account for the separate computer. And I used to do this, by the way. And then you could actually use that Skype account to bring in the other person. Of course, you would bring that into a different channel on the board, and you would actually do a second mix minus. And that's the whole thing with the aux knobs that we were talking about. And that option is diagrammed on this PDF document that I told you about as option number 2. And it basically shows you the layout of how you would hook up all of those cables if you were to do it that way. All right. And then option number 3 is you could have one Skype computer, or you could have the second Skype computer, or the second, instead of having a second Skype computer, you could have a telephone interface device like the JK Audio broadcast host that I'm using to, every time I do this right here, that right there, that is the telephone device that I use. You could use that, and all of that, it's kind of mentioned in there that you could just replace the second computer from option number 2. But anyway, that is so geeky, so super technical. And there's no way I can think of to answer a quick question like that via an email. And I think I've demonstrated here, even in this podcast episode, it's very difficult. So, my friends, when it comes to trying to pull all of this stuff off, it is all possible. It is. It is really not rocket science, although I know that, if you're not as used to this stuff as I am, I do know it can be super complicated and extremely overwhelming to everyone out there, but to a lot of people out there. But I just want to say that it is possible to do so much more than you could possibly imagine, and it works. And when you do it with hardware, and I mean, by the way, the software stuff would have been even way more complicated. But anyway, it all of this stuff is possible. And one of the good things is, I can tell you, is that this leads me into my next thing, and I want to tell you real quickly about my next Podcasting A to Z online course. As you guys know, I did a July A to Z course. It was my 6th time running the 4-week session, and I had 32 students that went through the course, and I'm happy to say that a majority of them actually launched their podcast before the end of the 3rd week, if not the 4th week. And several of those who said that they just had some life issues come up during the course are still actively going through the steps and are looking to create their shows within the next couple of weeks. So 32 new people entering the world of podcasting. Now, if you've been putting it off for a while, I'm going to play this audio testimonial from Lourdes to give you a feel of how somebody feels after they've come out of a Podcasting A to Z session. Lourdes, take it away.
Hey, Cliff, this is Lourdes Wellhaven here. Listen, I really just wanted to drop you a little audio thanking you for the recent podcast A to Z course. It was absolutely amazing. You have no idea just how awesome it was. I have been listening to podcasts, all sorts of podcasts, back before it was cool and back when people referred to it as internet radio, if you can believe it. And I have always wanted to launch a podcast of my own. Always, but could just never figure it out, or I didn't have the time to figure it out. Life gets in the way, and had purchased some equipment. None of it really worked, and just got very frustrated and kind of put that goal on the back burner. And thanks to your course, you just took all the mystery away. You made it very clear, very simple, and frankly, amazingly easy. Just step by step, showing us everything, and I'm just blown away by it, really. I'm tickled to death. Now, the very first podcast episode that I recorded, I am not sharing with anyone because it's horrible, but I really just needed to get past the first one. I just needed to get it done. But I have recorded another episode, much improved, and episode 2 and 3, which for the world is 1 and 2, are actually out there live and ready for people to hear on iTunes, the whole thing. And none of that would have been possible without you. It is a complete impossibility without the podcasting A to Z course. So you need to know, you have made a goal that I have had for years and years and years possible, and I thank you for that. And I also wanted you to know that I truly believe that you over-delivered, just completely went over the top in this course, being available to all of us constantly with any questions, and I'm just completely blown away. So thank you, Cliff, for helping me to reach this long-held goal. I don't know how else I could have done it. Now, I've got to get past the dreaded episode number 7, right? So I really am dropping you this line just to say that I did complete my commitment, because it's important to me for you to know that I did get the first podcast episode out there and in iTunes and the whole thing. But now I'm making another commitment that I will get past the dreaded episode number 7, and when I'm there, I'll let you know. Thanks again, Cliff, for everything. I certainly appreciate it.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for that feedback. I tell you, that it's a blessing to be able to do what I do and have people enjoy it as much and appreciate it as much as they do, and I'm very blessed in that way. And I thank God every day that I'm able to do what I love for a living and help people to get their message out there, to realize their dreams of sharing their passion with the world. My next podcasting A to Z session, I have already got it on the schedule. It's going to start, it's another 4-week session, obviously. September 24th, Monday, September 24th is when it will launch. It will go all the way through October 19th. That'll be a Friday when it ends. And I have 2 people already signed up and paid for. And here's the deal. If you would like, you can have immediate access to all of my tutorials that are included in this A to Z course if you sign up now using promo code PAM discount code PAM for Podcast Answer Man. You'll not only get the immediate access, but you'll also save $100 off the cost of the course. So again, go to podcastinga2z.com. Again, podcastinga2z.com. Use promo code PAM. You'll get $100 off, and you'll get immediate access to get a jump start, a whole month of jump start before we even start the course. You'll be prepared to ask me tons of questions when the course actually kicks off. So if you want to do that, podcastinga2z.com. Use promo code or discount code PAM in the shopping cart. Looking forward to having you there. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I have a new segment called the Business Technology Update. And to be honest with you, I had no idea that I was going to spend that much time on trying to answer how to bring in 2 callers and audio clips where everybody can hear each other. And I'm actually even questioning, was that even worth it trying to fit it into this episode? Was it too geeky? Was it too far out? Let me know what you think. I want to know, did you tune out during that conversation? Would you like more of that kind of stuff? Or is it okay to occasionally try to bring in that heavy-hitting, very geeky talk? Let me know. Go to podcastanswerman.com/273. podcastanswerman.com/273. Let me know in the comments section about your thoughts about how I handled Kelsey's call. Was it a complete waste? Did it help you? Just let me know. Let me know. That way I'll know moving forward to keep the geeky stuff out and steer people towards the A to Z course in the future. And I'll be sure to do that. Well, I only have 37 seconds left. I do want to say that I am going to be in Texas speaking at the Catholic New Media Conference. If you want more details about that, CatholicNewMediaConference.com. And then, of course, also, if you haven't heard about it yet, we have a GSPN.TV Podcast Answer Man community cruise. You can find out more at gspn.tv/cruise. And I want to say thank you to remarkablechatter.org for using my Bluehost affiliate sign up. God bless you all. We'll see you next week. Until then, take everything you do to the next level.